Welcome to the Etihad Cargo Connections with 10 Furlongs magazine. I'm your host today, Aurelian Jumeirah. We welcome Barry Irwin, the CEO of Team Valor. We will reflect on his several titles, particularly as the owner-breeder of Animal Kingdom, winner of the Dubai World Cup and Kentucky Derby. He will share with us insights on assessing a horse potential, recalling the swift decision to race at Royal Ascot post-World Cup. We will also discuss the gamble of going international in racing, distinctions between European and American pedigrees, and also the necessity of having a plan B in breeding decisions. Concluding with thoughts on current horses, Barry will shed light on training philosophies and future aspirations. Great to have you here, Barry. How are you doing today?
Very well. Thank you very much for inviting me. It's a pleasure.
Excellent. So, Barry, you're an owner, breeder, journalist, renowned farm student, and now the CEO of Team Valor. Many different talents. Which one of those titles give you the most pleasure?
I'm not really much on titles, but I'm proud of the work I've done as a journalist. It's made a difference several times over the years. I'm quite an outspoken individual. Sometimes that's good, sometimes it's bad, but I'm happy with some of the things I did as a journalist. That has given me the greatest satisfaction.
Excellent. Wow. I'd love to talk a little bit about what happened yesterday. So Shamrock Glitters came second at Meydan in the 7F conditions race. First of all, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
How did he come out of that race? Is he feeling okay?
Yes, I got 2 or 3 videos sent to me by my trainer, Francis Griffard, and the horse looks good. He doesn't seem to have been stressed. He ate up, all the good stuff you want to hear. In real life, until a horse goes back to the track and moves, you really don't know how they came out, but from the preliminary outward signs, everything looks good.
Perfect. So I'm sure you had some kind of expectations when he ran. But according to you, what was his performance like, and where do you see maybe some areas for improvement?
Right. That was just his third start. He's a very inexperienced green horse. The reason I bought him based on his fluent action. He's a beautiful mover, and he's got the kind of action that I think will transfer to the dirt. And my idea, Francis is the one that wanted to go to Dubai, and I picked up on it. And I said, yes, I want to do it because I want to see the horse breeze on the dirt. And if he moves as well as I think he will, then we can try him on the dirt. And he was kind of skeptical. Most European trainers, except for a guy like John Gosden, who actually trained for a while in the United States, they're not confident training or racing horses on the dirt. So the horse breezed on the dirt in company with a couple of horses 3 or 4 days before the race. I thought he went really well. But Francis wanted to go in this race because it fit his comfort zone. There was another race next week, just a conditions race that I was more interested in, but I didn't want to bother my trainer too much, and I let him do what he wanted. So going into the race, we knew that the winner was going to be a tough horse, and their other horse, Movie Maker, the other Godolphin, also looked pretty good. We liked the idea that we had an inside draw because we knew we could save ground. We didn't know where he was going to be positioned. So going in the race, we were not really looking to win. We were just looking to see a good performance and see some improvement. And as the race was run, even though we ran second, got beat a length, I was very happy with the performance. And I think if you switch the position of the winner with us, I think it would have been a lot closer. We might even have won. That horse had a wide draw. We had an inside draw. That horse never had a straw in his path, as they say. He had clear sailing all the way. Yeah, he lost some ground, but he was in the clear. Our horse was stuck inside. There was no pace. He has a lot of pace. He couldn't get through. Even when he got through, he had to go up the rail, which a lot of inexperienced horses don't like. And in the end, he got beat fair and square, but I'm very happy, and I would definitely not worry about racing against the winner next time.
I would imagine you have a lot of expectations from him.
There's still a lot of different options we have with him. I still want to try him on the dirt once before we leave the Middle East, but rather than come back in the Jumeirah Guineas in 3 weeks, I think we might just give him just like a little extra time and send him to run in a grade 2 in Qatar, going a mile with about 6 weeks between races.
Perfect. So you did mention a little bit about what's going to happen to him in the future. As a 2-year-old, what are your plans for him over the GCC season and maybe more long-term over the year and farther in the future?
I'm a little different than most racing guys, racing managers. I have an overall idea of what I would like to see them do, but I don't make too many plans, because the reason is you don't know what's going to happen from race to race. And if you make a long-term plan, you might force yourself to stick to it. I don't want to be bound by even my own ideas. So I just do it one race at a time, and it's worked out well for me over the years.
Great. I'd like to talk to you a little bit more about Animal Kingdom. So
Okay.
you're the owner breeder of Animal Kingdom, who won the Dubai World Cup and Kentucky Derby and placed in the Preakness and the Breeders' Cup Mile. Did any particular one of those races mean more to you than maybe the others?
Well, for an American, the Kentucky Derby is the end all be all. I mean, I've won 2 races that got me emotionally involved. This was one of them. The other was the Santa Anita Handicap, which I won with a horse that we bought. It was a Sheikh Mohammed reject called Martial Law. And we had to supplement him to the race. And between the supplement and the entry, it equaled 60% of what we paid for the whole horse. So it was quite a bit of money. And when you live in Southern California, the Santa Anita Handicap is the big race. It's the race that Seabiscuit tried to win, and it's got a tremendous history. And there was a lot of laughing and snide remarks about us running this horse in this grade 1 race, and a horse that had never even run in any kind of black type race. And so when he won that was really emotionally satisfying, as was the Derby, because our horse, nobody knew that much about him. He never run on the dirt. We had only breezed him once on the dirt. People thought we were just taking a shot, and we thought we knew what we were doing. And as it worked out, we did. So that was truly satisfying. As far as the World Cup, we had sold half of the horse to Arrowfield stud John Massara. And part of the deal was, part of the lure is we were going to point for the World Cup because it had tremendous prize money and prestige. And we thought that the horse would like the synthetic track, and that worked out in our favor very well.
Great. Did you know from day one that Animal Kingdom was that good?
No. He was, as a foal and a yearling, he was tall, thin, what they call one-gutted. He was narrow. He was all legs. And then as a yearling, late as a yearling, he started to make some progress. And it was owned by a breeding partnership of mine. So we put him in the sale. I bought him for 100, formed a partnership. Some of the people that stayed in, that were in it, stayed in, and we brought in some other people. And then as he began to develop at 2, he had one day where he worked from the gate. He went a half mile in 45 and change, which is, for a horse that has no speed and is not bred to sprint, that was just, mind-boggling. So then we had a pretty good idea. In his first start, he ran okay. He placed. I had another horse by the same sire, Loire de Sanamo, and they were trained by the same guy, and they were ridden by the same jockey, and they both ran second in their first start. And I asked the jockey, I said, which one of these is the better of the two? Because we didn't know, they both trained well. And he said, compared to the other horse, Animal Kingdom isn't even a thoroughbred. And that was kind of deflating. Anyway, in his next start at Keeneland, when he broke his maiden, that's when we knew what we had. So that was the first true glimpse that we had a horse that could be special.
I see. In general, Barry, how quickly can you decide if you have a really good one on your hands, or if maybe, you have one that probably won't make the grade?
You can tell the bad ones. It's hard to tell the good ones. The bad ones just, they don't have it. They lack athleticism, they lack speed, they lack, the physical depth that it takes to be a good horse. But how, what the ultimate level is a horse will achieve and whether they'll get there, it's not that easy. A lot of horses will fool you. They'll show speed early and you think you really have something and you don't.
Hindsight is a wonderful thing. Was it a mistake going to Royal Ascot after the World Cup?
Well, here's the story on that. So we sold part of the horse to Sheikh Mohammed. And so at that point, I was still a shareholder, but there was no dominant shareholder. And my deal with John Massara was I got to call all the shots through the World Cup. And then after that, it was basically his horse. And he's the one that wanted to do it. I cautioned against it. And I said, look, this horse has just achieved the pinnacle. I don't think he can run another race that will add any luster to his profile. And he was, I think he would admit this, he was a little heady with the prospect of running that horse again, and maybe even running it in a couple of big races that he helped design and institute in Australia. And so that was, that's him. That was John Massara that decided to do that. And look, it wasn't a great idea. He thought it was worth it. What happened that day is there was a mare in the paddock and our horse got a whiff of her and he proceeded to show his manhood and sweat it up, and that was it. He ran his race in the preliminaries.
I see. Well, in any case, you learn, hopefully we all learn from past experiences. So
that's the only way you learn, by your mistakes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you have a very appropriate nickname in BI, down to your remarkable ability to spot horses with talent. How much of a gamble did you feel it was going international with so many races worldwide?
Well, I started my partnerships with a guy who was a good friend of mine, Jeff Siegel, who to this day I regard as the best form analyst and handicapper in the United States. He lives in Southern California and he works for Santa Anita most of the year. He's a brilliant guy, and he and I were partners. And I always enjoyed international racing more than he did. And, so we had a few differences of opinion. I wanted to go one way, he wanted to go the other. And so what happened is I bought him out. And the first thing I did was I added the word international to Team Valor International. That was sometime in the mid 2000s, like 2007. And I have always enjoyed international racing, both as a fan and as a participant. It just gives you a wider palette to paint your picture, and it's more interesting. Racing in the United States can be a little boring. It's all run around a circle. The circles look alike. There's not a lot of difference between them. There are more races sprinting than there are going longer. And I just, it was just becoming a little boring for me.
Sure. That sounds like a good idea to go explore.
Right.
How do, talking about that, how do you choose which races to watch, and especially in which countries? For example, do you have a team of people watching and recommending, or is it all done to you at the end of the day?
It's a combination of both. So we watch international maiden races, England, Ireland, France, Germany, Italy. And then we pay more attention to the 2-year-olds because we like to buy 2-year-olds. Our biggest buying season is from summer through fall. August, September, October, November, that's our biggest buying season. Both in America and in Europe, it's hard to buy a horse before Ascot's over because every time a horse breaks its maiden, it's a Royal Ascot horse, and they price the horses accordingly. So we don't put in too much effort, the first few months of the year. And then the second half of the year is when we try to go after our horses. I also have a group of, they don't work for me per se. They're agents. A lot of them have worked for me for many, many years, and each one of them has a different outlook. They seem to, fall into their own private little niche, and they come up with a variety of horses. I would say on average, we are offered 1.5 to 2 horses every day of the year, and we only buy about 12 or 14.
Wow.
So it's a lot of looking. I have things that I look for specifically, and it's worked out pretty well.
So talking about that, what is more important for you? Like grass pedigree or polytrack form, breeding stats?
It's one thing and one thing only: how they move. I want a horse that's a beautiful, efficient mover. I don't want to see any deviation in the front legs when they move. And usually the ones that move well are conformed pretty well. You don't want any glaring faults. If you watch 2 horses run in a race, they're coming down the stretch. One of them is moving straight forward, and the other one has legs that deviate. 99 out of 100 times, the horse that moves the most efficiently is going to win the race. So this comes from years of watching races. I started out as a rider, then a handicapper, and I've learned that you want the most efficient mover possible. Then after that, I like a good temperament and good conformation. Pedigree is always last. And okay, from the day I opened my company, I said, we are not spending $1 for pedigree. We are spending all of it on athleticism. And, for a long time, that wasn't the way people did things. Now everybody does that. It's just who's better at it than the other one.
That's true. I'd like to talk to you about the differences between European horses and the one from the US. What is the major difference between the two?
How they're trained. In Europe, they have better training facilities. They have, I hate to say this, but they have better trainers. Their trainers in Europe have an apprenticeship. They have to go through a lot of things, jump through a lot of hoops to learn how to do it. In America, we don't see that often. There are some people that did do it, and they're the best trainers. But the ones that just jump into it, it doesn't work. And in Europe, you can let a horse in the morning trials, you can let them lay their body down. You can let them go flat out if you want. And the chances of them hurting themselves are slim compared to America, where our tracks are hard. There's too much concussion. There's too much pounding. There's too much playing around with the surface. There's a lot of things here that are against the horse. Europe is a place where you can develop a horse. And when a horse comes here from Europe, one that, quote, runs off the plane, a horse that's prepared for a race to run right within a few days of landing, those horses have an edge, in my opinion, of anywhere from 5 to 10 pounds in condition over our horses, because we can't train our horses that hard, After a while, that edge is lost because the European horses are forced to train and race over here. But I think that's the difference. And the way the horses are brought up in terms of their training with, longer, slower workouts and everything builds a different sort of body. They look different when they get here than our horses.
Wow.
So that's part of the reason I'm so enamored of European racing and horses.
It's very interesting indeed. And you're still living in the US?
Yeah. The other thing is, so I've been doing this for 50 years. And when I started, we had all the good stallions. We had a lot of the best bloodstock in the world. And we had plenty of good grass sires, and we developed horses that became good grass sires. Now we've just got less than a handful. I mean, Europe, England, Ireland, France, even Germany, they have better stallions for grass racing than we do in America. That's another difficult thing here.
Wow. So with the breeding of Animal Kingdom, you had to make a quick decision when King Mambo got injured and changed her to the Brazilian horse, the Roi des Animaux. Was that an easy decision for you to make on such a short notice? And how much luck was involved there?
Yeah, it was a little bit of consternation. Okay. So we had a partner in Animal Kingdom. So I bought his dam in Germany, and I brought in a few people, including one guy, and he owned a good chunk of the mare. Delicia was her name. And so I was calling the shots on the partnership. And when King Mambo went offline, we had to make, as you say, almost an instant decision. I'm talking a couple of hours. And so I was involved in two of the stallions that stood at this guy's farm. One was Medaglia d'Oro, a horse I bought for him, and the other was Le Roi des Animaux. And my choice was Medaglia d'Oro because he was a fantastic sire, and he was one of the best looking stallions I've ever seen. But he had a high stud fee. And this guy did own some open shares, but he wanted to sell them for cash. And he's the one that pushed Le Roi des Animaux. So my wife and my wife's pretty good on pedigrees. We looked at it and we decided, yeah, this will work. Let's go for it. But it wasn't our first or our second choice.
Fair enough. Do you always tend to have a plan B?
No.
Just no.
Plan B is bored out of necessity. Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. All right. I'd love to talk a little bit about your current horses now. So you seem to have no problem in keeping older horses in training when many breeding outfits cannot wait to get them off to the paddocks. Is this a deliberate ploy?
Yeah, I mean, I form racing partnerships. I don't form breeding partnerships. We do buy horses sometimes hoping that they will develop into potential stallions. That's where a lot of the home runs are. But my business model is not based on that. It's not based on prize money. It's based on asset appreciation. So I want to buy a horse for $1, race it, win a couple of dollars, and then sell it for even more dollars. That's how I run my operation. So a lot of our horses, we are able to keep them going because our people enjoy racing them. I've always wanted to race more geldings, but getting an American person to buy a gelding or even gelding a horse that an American person has is a difficult thing for a lot of owners that are inexperienced. In Europe, a gelding is really not looked upon as being a negative that much. Insurance companies will downgrade a horse if you geld it, or if you buy a gelding, they won't evaluate it for as much as if it was an entire horse. But most horsemen would agree that geldings have a better chance to stay sound and realize their full potential because a lot of the bad behavior is taken out of it with the loss of testosterone. and then they are lighter bodied horses, so they have a better chance to stay sound.
Okay. Romagna Mia is a 40-year-old British bred filly who ran in Italy and France before being shipped out to the US. She won a Grade 3 nicely at Kinland before bolting up recently at Gulfstream. What are the immediate plans for her? Is she seen as a future broodmare? Did you like her sire, Master Craftsman, as a racehorse and as of now, much missed stallion?
Yeah. So I am approaching my 81st birthday. All right. We have cut our breeding operation down to just basically one mare that's owned by the partnership. My wife and I, we own a couple of mares. We own the dam of Romagna Mia. We also own the dam of our best American-based horse, a filly called Greena. My wife and I like to breed and speculate a little bit. We're for all intents and purposes, we're out of breeding, you know. So as far as Romagna Mia goes, we bought her to race. So I bought her for 500,000 euros at Arcana. And I usually will keep 5% of a horse, sometimes 10%. On this one, I kept 50% because I earned a lot of money that year with a filly called La Petite Coco, and I wanted to invest some of it back in a horse. So I bought half of Romagna Mia and invited 5 of our clients to join me in the partnership. A great part of why I bought her was, in fact, her sire, Master Craftsman, because he got horses that had stamina, and that's what I was looking for in a filly. And she had a great body, and we had some luck with Spanish Mission, who was a good horse, good stayer, and he was by Master Craftsman. So that's what went into that purchase. As far as her plans, we are waiting to see who goes in the Amir Sword in Cutter. She ran in the race last year. It was kind of a speculation thing, and she finished, I think, 8th or 9th, got beat 5 lengths, but had a lot of trouble. That was her first time going from 10 to 12 furlongs. This year, she's run 12 furlongs twice. That's her whole card. That's exactly what she wants to do. She's bigger, she's stronger, she's better, and we would like to take another try at that race if it doesn't come up too tough for her. If it does, then we'll probably just stay home, run her in a Grade 3 on the Pegasus Day undercard and a race called the La Prevoyante at Gulfstream. But my trainer, Graham Motion, and I, very keen to go to Cutter again.
Let's talk now about a bit of a superstar, Factor Cheval, a 4-year-old gelding by Richester out of Charmal Mare. Impeccable breeding. He had a great 3-year-old season. Was this year a bit of a disappointment, even though, he ran at his highest level? And what would you say was his best performance this year?
Well, I wasn't disappointed. I would think it would be more like frustration to have placed in 4 Grade 1, 4 Group 1s, and not be able to win one of them. He's for a gelding, he carries as much condition and has as much size as any entire horse. I mean, he is just a mouth-watering physical specimen. He's got a lot of energy. He didn't race at 2. And I think a lot of horsemen would recognize what I'm going to say now, which is that when a horse doesn't race at 2, and they start out at 3, they're backward, and it takes them a long time to catch up. And my trainer, Jerome Renier, has done just a superb job with this horse because he took him along very slowly. He won his first 4 or 5 races, but he raced him in small races to begin with because he recognized this horse needed education. And even last year, when he placed in some of the big races, he was green racing in between horses. And I think this year, I'm hoping he's going to come into his own. I think he's a supremely talented horse. I think he can win a Group 1 anywhere. And we're going to start him off in a little race next month in France. And then we're going to go to Dubai for the Dubai Turf.
That's great. I want to talk to you about Order of the Phoenix, who won an ordinary maiden at Dundalk in October, but could not have been more impressive. She's part of this new initiative that you are promoting, whereby you get other new people to racing to get involved in ownership via syndicates in partnership with Team Valor. How is that going?
It's going pretty well. So I have difficulty convincing or enticing American-based owners to race in Europe. So I need to come up with something to entice them. So for newcomers on this one, I went back to an old thing I did. I started it with a horse called Pluck, who we bred and who wound up winning the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. And so for a newcomer, I will let them come in with installment payments, 3 equal payments over 6 to 9 months. And that's brought in some new people, and people seem to appreciate having that opportunity.
Great. Could you give us one horse to follow over the next 12 months who we may not know that well? And is there one new sire whose progeny you're particularly excited to see make the track?
A horse I have that I think he's a little bit under the radar, and he's somewhat of a sleeper, and he's by an up-and-coming sire. There's a horse called Mansa Musa. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's a 3-year-old colt. We bought him from a fellow a trainer in Ireland, Diego, and he's from Brazil. And the horse, he tried to sell the horse to somebody in Hong Kong, and the horse, for some reason, didn't pass the vet. They said, I have a hunch they just didn't. They had a change of heart. So the horse ran at Goodwood, and he won a maiden race narrowly, but he won. And he beat a horse called Array that came back for Andrew Balding and Juddmont, and won the Grade 2 Millreef at Newbury. So we bought him, brought him to Ireland, ran him twice. He was second in a Grade 3, Group 3, and then he was second in a listed race. The horse that beat him in the Group 3, it looked like a good horse, but apparently he's never going to run again. He got hurt. And then the next start, a horse got away from us and we couldn't catch him. But this horse physically is just an awesome individual. He's by 10 Sovereigns. 10 Sovereigns was without doubt, one of the best freshman sire last year. I think he looks like he's got quite a future. You know, every year there's at least 6 or 7 horses with the same profile as 10 Sovereigns that go to stud. And, you know, until you see their progeny at the sales or at the 2-year-old sales, or until they run, you don't really know which ones are going to make it. But this horse, I think the cat's out of the bag on him. I expect him to have a big year. We brought our horse. We were going to run him in the Breeders' Cup, but in his final workout, he stumbled, hit a bad spot or something, and wrenched his ankle. So we had to stop on him for 6 or 8 weeks. Now he's here in Florida training with Bill Mott, and we're going to just reserve him in America for grass sprint races. And hopefully he'll turn out to be a Breeders' Cup horse. And we like 10 Sovereigns so much that we decided to breed the dam of Romagna Mia to him this year.
Okay, wow, excellent. Thank you for sharing your thoughts on him. On to the last question. Is there any race that you have not yet won that you really want on your resume, and which country would give you the great pleasure if you could obtain success there, like maybe Australia?
Well, for me, it's the Arc. That would be the absolute ultimate race, because it is unquestionably the highest class race, the hardest race to win. It's the most competitive. I love racing in France. They have the most beautiful race courses. I just think the whole structure of French racing, I just, I wish I could live in France, to tell you the truth. I like it that much. Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, thank you for sharing today. I'm French, so that's a great, that's great to hear.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Barry.
Okay, my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.
Okay, take it easy.
Thanks. Bye-bye.